Welcome everybody to Today in Space. This week we are having another segment of People of Science where we talk to people who are involved in science, technology, engineering, the arts, math, whatever it is, and we talk about their passion and where they came upon it, what they're doing now. And this week we're honored to have Chris Wade on Ethereal Geometry. Thank you for coming on, Chris.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you reaching out. I've been a fan of your artwork for a little while. I believe I found out about you through my connection with Wayne Newmeyer.
Oh,
Um, so I was recommended through some friends that reached out there. So I love your artwork. I picked up a piece the other day from your Etsy store, and
oh,
I'm
cool.
I'm fascinated to talk about you about where your passion for art came from and like what you're doing now.
Yeah,
So just tell the
well,
folks a little bit about yourself.
okay. Well, I am I'm an artist in Huntsville, Alabama, aka the Rocket City, and we Huntsville's known for rockets, NASA, Space Center, Space Camp. I kind of describe my work as surrealism with an aerospace or, you know, space kind of concentration. I describe it as kids art for adults and kids too. And you know, it's it's very kind of whimsical, a bit dark, but dreamy and hopeful at the same time. And
Yeah.
at least that's what I'm going for. I'm going for my work feeling like the kind of dreams I was having. And as you can see, one of them back there, my for my background. I was having all kinds of dreams of finding abandoned rockets for a while and for several years, and then I just got fascinated, and I'd always been interested in space, but having those dreams, starting to do art based on it or inspired by those dreams, got me even more fascinated in space and space history, and you know, kind of illustrating this place of fascination. Um, Illustrating places that feel like they ignite that childlike fascination for the way I used to feel as a kid
Mm.
when I would um, see rockets towering over the highway passing by the place, or when I'd see jets or space imagery or sci-fi. And now it's kind of it feels like a way of re-exploring, going back and exploring those kind of forgotten places and reviving them, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah. I can relate. That's kind of why I started the podcast was to get back to that like excitement of doing something you really love. So
Yeah.
I can relate there. So I have to ask this first because I do want to learn more about like what you got into art. But when were you having these dreams? Because I love your artwork. Like I when you described it to me, I totally got the that surrealism, like going into a dream but experiencing like the awe and wonder of it. When were you having these dreams about abandoned rockets?
Seems like we started probably about 10, 12 years ago. And then I was having those dreams for several years. And um, then a conversation with a professor in college, she said, why don't you well, she said, why don't you take the way your upbringing affected you and illustrate that? And I thought, oh, that's kind of dumb. I don't want to do that. And because I was thinking too literal. And then I passing by a rocket one night, and I was having just these dreams, and you know, suddenly, around that time, the rockets, the rocket imagery just jumped out at me everywhere I went. Even my sister came home from moved back to town and introduced her new dog, Rocket. And and then it was well, these dreams, they felt like discovering something monolithic, like almost as if I were from a time in the future where there wasn't a space program, or as if I was discovering these rockets for the first time, you know, because it brought back that feeling of just bewilderment, amazement, and feeling like just complete mystery and awe. And in a way, it also felt like rediscovering myself, rediscovering my purpose. And it was during a very down period of my life. And when I had those dreams and felt that feeling, it was like, you know, eventually I got the hint to start trying to capture that in my work. And in a way, it felt like it gave me purpose again, you
Mm.
know? So,
Oh, absolutely. So part of the reason why I asked the time of it is because um, 10, 12 years ago, that's 2010,
yeah,
2012, that is the nexus point of American space rocket history. That's the
yeah,
time when everything was transitioning away from the space shuttle to whatever they were going to do next. I was going to school for aerospace engineering at that time, and so my job prospects hit the tank. So
mhm,
this potential future that you're talking about, where we didn't have a space program, that was the time. So it's 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 a really cool thing. I think the universe kind of um, just putting you in the right place at the right time.
yeah,
There's a lot of people who listen to this podcast who are really into STEM or very, very scientifically minded. And there's some people who don't ever have like an arts background. I started um, drawing myself. I was really into um, anime and manga, and that's most of what my style was originally. And then I started moving into, I played music and jazz. I was a trumpet player. Um, Played in marching bands. So like that's where my history starts. I was not like always thinking I was gonna be an aerospace engineer, um, and so the I think I have a good advantage of having the mix of the two, because not everything's black and white. Not everything's numbers and graphs, and there's some things that don't have to necessarily make sense.
right.
And I think it's your artwork captures that. For me, I think a lot, and but were you aware? I mean, you were in Huntsville, so obviously you guys saw the. I would expect the kind of decrease of space activity and everything that went down there.
Well, see, I didn't really, because I've never been in that aerospace world.
Mm,
I mean, I, I honestly didn't really know that I didn't know they had canceled the space shuttle program until I started working at space camp a few years later,
mm,
and it was like, because the thing about Huntsville, we still have the space station and we have the mission control for the space station here.
mm,
One of them, is they also handle some of that out of Houston too. But I got a ton of, I know a ton of people, got a few friends uh, who work at the Payload Ops Center talking to astronauts and while they're on the space station. Aside from that, you know, we didn't really hear a whole lot of engine testing for quite a while.
mm.
It's like we're starting to hear that again. Because you
Yes.
can hear the roar way off in the distance of rocket engines being tested.
Wow.
Um, at least we used to, but then Blue Origin bought out the S1C static test stand for
Mm.
the Saturn V. All five engines tested.
Oh, wow.
They bought that stand out to test out engines there. So hopefully we're going to hear some rumbling soon. But you know, we're also a big missile defense town. So
Mm,
I mean, unless you work for NASA, um, you know, it, every past several years, everyone I know who works for NASA, they work for some contractor out here
mm,
working on the SLS, or the Artemis, or the Orion. So everybody's got a part to play, even if it's not like we're Houston, or it's not like we are Kennedy Space Center where launches happen all the time. We
right.
got ULA down the road. So basically, even if the shuttle wasn't taken off and the SLS still hasn't taken off,
Close. Very close.
it's yeah. I mean, regardless of what's launching and not launching, everybody's still busy working on rockets. The Atlas and Deltas, continued being rolled out, and
Right.
you know, space station was still being serviced, and the SLS was been under, all the testing, going through all the testing the past several years. A lot of it happening out here, the core stage, and they did that pressure, where they over pressurized it to see how
Mm,
much it could handle until it just popped.
yeah.
Um, unfortunately, they're not using like the dynamic test stand or anything, and they're not using any of the only historic test stand they're actually using is, Blue Origin, having bought out that big one.
Mm,
Aside from that, missile defense, that's what everybody works in here, you know,
right.
except for me, it seems. So yeah,
That's cool, man. Thank you for that. I'm up here in the Northeast, so we don't really have much locally for that kind of thing. We have places like MIT and we've got the Harvard Observatory and things like that, but um, you know, too everything's just too far from here.
yeah.
The closest thing is up in Maine. They're starting to build a launch site out there for like CubeSat launches.
Oh,
Um,
what,
Blue Shift
circumpolar,
Aerospace.
circumpolar.
Um, it's a unique orbit that nobody else can access. Yeah, I'm not sure that it might actually be. Yeah,
That's cool. I didn't know they were. Yeah, I take it's probably smaller rockets.
yeah, smaller rockets. But they've got so much potential business, and they're using a biofuel, which is new and
Mm,
intriguing. So
cool.
that Air Force base up there, they're using some of that for that launch area. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah. So but enough about that. Let's talk. Where did it start? Like, where were you drawing as a kid? Were you painting as a kid? Like, where did it come from? Where's the passion come from?
Well, I loved drawing as a kid because it was a thing to do. It was
Mm,
fun. But then I got bored with it because I didn't know what to draw. I saw other
mm,
people's artwork and I just didn't know how to think of anything interesting to draw. But I remember as a kid, I really loved drawing jets and
mm,
designing spaceships.
mm,
And had I not gotten obsessed with guitar when I was 12,
mm.
um, had that not ruined me as a person? Um,
Oh no, really?
well, I say that in the sense of I got obsessed and I couldn't think of anything else I wanted to do with my life than music.
Oh,
Had I not gotten so obsessed with music, I probably would have gone into aerospace engineering because I liked the idea as a kid of designing jets. I thought I'd love to own a company that designs spaceships like the ones in Independence Day.
yeah.
And um, my dad got me fascinated with jets as a kid, but when I see people's real art, I'm like, okay, obviously I don't know how to come up with anything interesting besides just childish drawings of jets.
Mm.
So I just got carried away with music for a while, and then I was in my yeah, I was in my early 20s and maybe 19 at the time when I was like, I'm gonna I'm gonna like, you know, maybe I should maybe I should draw or attempt to paint because I had watercolors I'd not used and because I didn't really know how to use the media properly and I felt just kind of unlearned even though I took some art classes in high school.
Mm.
I felt a bit unlearned, but I thought, well, I see a lot of imagery in my mind um, whenever I hear music and when I write music and write lyrics. So maybe I could paint something that I see in my mind, or something similar that has that kind of feel. And that's how I accidentally stumbled onto surrealism.
Mm.
And I stopped trying to draw what I saw with my eyes,
Mm.
and I started trying to draw what I was seeing in my imagination, things that didn't quite make sense, almost like ethereal realities that I guess the we didn't have the AI apps yet. Otherwise, I probably would have gone nuts, with the AI art. But the stuff that I was designing was stuff I was trying to paint at the time and draw at the time. It was very similar to that, and then ended up in some, strange perspectives, inspired by Dolly and Escher, and
Mm-hmm.
which Dolly and Escher are two kind of very opposite ends of the spectrum with surrealism. One's very precise, but the perspective is really manipulated there. And then Dolly, it's very fluid, and you know. So I'm very fascinated with both of those aspects in my work, and I ended up going to school for graphic design, thinking I could just use my artistic talent to work for somebody. And then I just ended up getting obsessed with painting, and I was putting out so many ideas. I just didn't have time to do it as a side project.
Mm.
I didn't have time, or I had too many ideas to just treat it as a hobby outside of work.
Yeah.
So, going after, trying to go after it, you know, as a career, and learning a lot of things the hard way, and or at least the annoying way.
Mm.
And you know, who knows? Maybe at some point I will be like, I think I've gotten a good enough portfolio now to get a job somewhere.
Mm.
So who knows? Maybe I'll decide that, or maybe my career as an artist will take off. I don't know. Kind of
Yeah.
up in the air, but
Well, I'm happy to have you on and spread the word about what you're doing because I think you got something there. I
sure.
really do. So sorry, there's a point to me bringing this up. I promise.
Yeah.
Um, I grew up. My mom's an art teacher.
Cool.
She went to school at BU, and this is like she went to school for graphic design. Right, she was one of the last classes to take graphic design before computers jumped in. So by the time
Oh,
she was getting a job, everything moved over to digital, and so
mm,
all her portfolios and everything was out of date at that point. Um,
I feel
and
very obsolete in a way too.
Yeah, yeah, and it was you basically had to go get your degree over again at that point.
Yeah.
But she ended up becoming an art teacher, and I mean, I've seen what she's done to change like so many kids' lives of just like introducing them to something that they probably wouldn't even think of before. So
Yeah.
I've seen the challenge of working in a school system and making sure that the arts get funded and
Hmm.
that it doesn't fall off the map.
Yeah.
Did you experience any of that? Like, was it always that you had, you were just, and again, correct me if I'm wrong at all, but it seems like the art kind of flows through you. It seems like you're kind of just feeling what comes to you and then putting it down on paper and kind of having that happen. Have you always been able to keep that up on your own? Were there programs growing up that kind
Hmm.
of helped solidify that for you?
Well, I never went through any programs or anything. I mean, like you talking about like computer programs or programs at school or
Yeah, school programs. I guess
what?
even as simple as like a school has like a an arts department. You know.
Yeah, I mean, I took art classes,
Mm.
and went to school for graphic design. In a way, I kind of used that. I took advantage of that so I could take more art classes and
Mm.
learn how to do oil paint and watercolor. And those were both media that I was very intimidated by for some reason.
Oh wow,
Like,
nice.
to be honest with you, I have a tendency to um, not try the things I'm intimidated by,
Mm.
and not until someone can demonstrate and show me how easy it actually is to learn it, or if I learn a few techniques, like say in Photoshop, that took forever for me to finally learn Photoshop and Illustrator. And then once I did, I found times where I got fascinated with it,
Mm.
got really carried away, but you know, I really just got fascinated with painting
Mm.
and drawing. And I love the challenge of I love the challenge of using my hands to create these not a software, but using my hands to create you know, a pencil or a brush to create these realities, these worlds, these ethereal type of landscapes and monolithic symbols made from made out of these, space hardware. Uh, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
but when I started having, well, okay, I had that dream. So I was having those dreams, and then I was passing by the Saturn 1B that's on over by the state line, Alabama Tennessee state line, and I thought, well, I've been having a lot of those dreams. What if I did something involving the rockets? And then I thought, well, if I were a kid, like in my dreams, and I were to find one of these things, I would build a treehouse. I'd have to invite my friends. We'd have our homemade spacesuits, and we'd be space cadets, space rangers.
Yeah.
And I say space cadets because I've started reincorporating the humor in my work. Almost going a tad ridiculous in my stuff. A bit
Yeah.
absurd. Taking the goofy, quirky ideas that I've suppressed for so long, finally adding that stuff back in. Like I got one it's a flaming marshmallow on a stick, and it's got rocket engines attached, and there's Lego Benny inside it. I
I saw that
call
one the other day. It had me laughing, man.
I call it Don't Panic. And I've got another one that I'm working on finishing up. It's one of those cardboard space camp rockets lawn darted into the ground with a flower growing through it, and these little Lego guys looking up at it like it's a big monolith.
Yeah.
Um, and then goofy creatures that I paint uh, as a different series than the rockets. And it took me a while to finally break out of just sticking to the rocket theme
Mm.
and kind of allow my humor back out. Like in full, not just little tiny bits of humor,
Right.
because I feel like I suppressed my humor for a long time because I used to come across as really obnoxious and annoying, and so I just kind of hid it. And now I just seeing other artists out there really encourages me to just let loose and
Mm.
make myself laugh. when I'm painting these things. And but yeah, the you talked about the art just flows. It really does. I used to not be able to think of anything to paint
Mm.
or draw, and now I don't have nearly enough time to even put a dent in all the ideas I've got in my sketchbook.
Yeah.
So many things I'm just really dying to get around to painting. Including a giant painting of maybe not a giant painting, but a painting series involving the test stands.
Mm.
I've got these ideas sketched out of these engine test stands overgrown, and you know people and boats around them because the place is flooded. Fun fact: the arsenal used to be a swamp.
Oh.
Um, and there's some glow in the dark graffiti. It's like if we're gonna make this dreamy, why don't we make it completely dreamy? Let's put some glowing trees and glow in the dark graffiti on it.
Yeah.
Make it look like we're on the boat coming up to this giant thing that looks like a huge fortress sticking out of the water,
Yeah.
but it's almost bioluminescent, like
Mm.
you're in the movie Avatar.
Sick.
Um, I'm starting to say screw realism. I want to go completely ridiculous and really draw people into that reality and make them want to go there. You
Yeah.
know, I want to cause people to see the world around them through that perspective of what would what would I pretend this place were if I were a kid,
Mm.
you know? And a lot of my dreams, whether rocket related or not, have had a huge part to play in me seeing the world around me through these eyes as if I'm watching a sci-fi movie or
Yeah.
I'm exploring an alien planet or exploring a dream world.
Mm-hmm.
So it's just that when the anxiety and the stress kicks in, it can rob you of that perspective. And, if you have that ability to really shape your world around you, that anxiety and stress will suck the energy out of your creative ability to shape your world.
I can relate 100%. I mean, let's talk about that a little bit because
Yeah.
I don't really have the opportunity to. I usually talk into the abyss, so
Mm.
it's really nice to have somebody else to bounce this off of.
Yeah.
I have a lot of anxiety and stress that I deal with, but this podcast for me was kind of my artistic outlet, and like that has helped me out, I think, more than anything else. And now it's to the point where I'm shaping my whole life around making sure that this happens. Like it's non-negotiable. I'm doing the podcast. I'm putting it out. I'm going to enjoy it. And then I went too far with that and pulled it back because I wasn't seeing anybody. I wasn't hanging out with anybody, and I need you need friends. So
Yeah.
um, for you, and so when my artistic path stopped, I was going into college to learn aerospace engineering, which was completely new. Again, like I was smart for my town, but not smart for aerospace engineering. So um,
Yeah.
for me, that's
Calculus kicked my butt too.
yeah.
So that's why I didn't go into a technical field is because of calculus. Anyway,
Mm.
continue. Sorry.
No, no, not at all. I think I'm like blown away by how many similarities I'm finding. So that time period was extremely stressful and anxiety ridden, and I had you mentioned like I don't remember how you mentioned it, but kind of like stuffing it down, like not letting it, hiding it away and not expressing it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until years out of college and working on graduating because I didn't graduate on time, so there's that whole stress. But not, to make a long story short, it wasn't until I started doing this podcast and realizing, oh, like I like this. I like getting on the mic. For me, it was performing in front of a crowd and playing music, and this is a way for me to do that and get that same thing. I use Google Keep for like all my ideas, and it's just like an infinite scroll. Like I'm
Mm.
just putting ideas in there nonstop, and it's like it doesn't matter what the tool is. It's just how easily can I go from here to here, and then not have to use the brain power to keep it up there.
Hmm.
For you, do you feel like it was like a similar thing where like once you allowed yourself to open that up, it just kind of like came at you, and you're just like, all right, I guess I'll keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like some of the territory of ideas that started coming up with, or that started coming to me,
Mm,
happened by accident at times.
mm,
When I, for instance, when I found that, saw that rocket and thought, well, I should do a rocket painting, and like what, start exploring that world in my head. Like, you know, it's always golden hour in my dreams. But the way I thought back as a kid, when I'd see rockets, I'd always think of, I'd love to hang here at night.
mm.
We could hang out here, talk to aliens, talk to people that are in space, have a party.
Yeah.
It's the way your kid brain thinks, and then same with when I'd see satellite dishes. I thought it was people talking to people in space, having a party, and
Yeah.
it was just fascinating to me. And, never set in the reality that people sit in observatories or secluded from the world and you know, just crunching numbers the whole time. I don't even know what crunching a number is. Anyway, um, but then the ideas just started flowing to me involving rockets, and I'd see all these space hardware pictures, and I get fascinated. I started following space hipsters, and the colors started jumping out at me in some of the pictures, and I thought, well, and also working at space camp, seeing the neon lights or the LED lights, the colored lights that were illuminating the mission floor, where those space station modules and Mars simulate or Mars base simulators and the Orion capsules and all those things were being illuminated like these almost pastel but also almost neon colors. These blues, soft blues and yellows and pinks, and it just suddenly all the ideas for colors in my work started just really coming to me. You know, and I'm getting at something, I promise. But
Oh
um,
no, I think it's great, man. Like, take a second to think about it. But like the thing that you're that it seems like to me is like environment, right? Like environment plays such a big role, and
yeah,
you're living in this place where you have rocket history, just kind of like all over the place. It's kind of magical, man, to see
yeah,
how much that can just living in a place like that can
yeah.
influence you.
But like, going to start traveling to, going to art shows in different cities from time to time, and started going to Chattanooga a lot because it's only 2 hours away and it's really beautiful. And the mountains are, even though they're not the Rockies or the Appalachians necessarily,
Mm.
they the mountains there are still a lot bigger than they are here. And started having all these crazy dreams about mountains, and having dreams about Huntsville being flooded, and it's always in golden hour, and the context was really strange. Like people in these weird structures, just hanging out while the city was flooded, and you know these rockets that were also somehow part of a thrill ride. It was really scary, but fascinating. And then the pandemic happened, and I'm offering lessons on, over Skype or Zoom, FaceTime, art lessons. Only ended up giving two lessons um, before I had a really goofy creature drawn up as a demo, and I posted it, and everybody started making requests for, you know, paint me a goofy creature, paint me a goofy otter based on your style. And so I drew an otter with, like, I painted a blue otter in a silver spacesuit, and he's drinking a beer. And and everybody started making these requests for all these other animals, and people started making requests for pet portraits, and I started doing crazy, goofy pet portraits, and that became kind of a regular thing for me. And easy to get burned out doing it. But then, as you experiment with different things, like I was experimenting with drawing and painting a camel whose body is a bathtub, and his humps are two little mountains sticking out of the water of this bathtub, and there's
Oh
like
wow.
little cars driving up these little bitty mountains, little houses on them, and a rocket launch pad and a UFO flying up to this camel's face, checking him out, and his tail is his tail is like electrical cords that are not plugged into the wall. Um, and it's just extremely goofy. And his feet are made of his legs are made of water, and his feet are puddles. And there's a little boat inside this puddle with a little mouse in it. And I'm just going completely all out ridiculous. And the camel's smoking a pipe or a cigarette or
Love it.
something.
I was gonna say, yeah.
And and but it got me fascinated with the idea of drawing these little miniature worlds. And then I go to Meow Wolf a couple weeks ago, and I see all these glass cases, or well, probably plexi cases with in this one room with all these little miniature worlds, these little islands. They're these floating islands like what you see in Avatar, but they're like held together by different materials. Some of them held together by or linked by wire bridges, or vegetation, or there's crystals growing all over some of them. And there's these houses and buildings, and just all these crazy surreal little tiny worlds. And it just got, I was like, bam, there's permission to do the kind of series I want to do
Yeah.
based on some of these goofy ideas rolling around in my head and on my sketchbook. And that's the permission to do it, because if it's there, it means somebody likes it. Like if it's at Meow Wolf, it means someone likes that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And it means I get to do that kind of thing because someone will like it. And so in other words, nothing's off limits. You know, basically what I'm getting at is the more I experiment, the more I explore, what could I add to this? What could I add to that? Just little goofy ideas, that come to me just, you know, because they seem funny to me.
Yeah.
And those things come to me, and then I'm like, okay, I have to do it. And then more ideas stem from that.
Yeah.
I noticed the other night I'm sitting there watching a movie, and I'm sketching one of these goofy little worlds, and then I'm thinking, well, this thing needs an outhouse. Wait a second, I'm gonna draw an outhouse on a cloud with with an antenna on it, and the roots are coming down through the bottom of the cloud, and there's a tree in this cloud wrapped around this outhouse, and there is an owl sitting on the branch, and I'm just gonna call it the outpost,
Yeah.
and while I'm thinking of that, I have all these other ideas. Wait a second, I need to put a cactus growing out of a cloud, and there's houses and launch platforms and landing pads for UFOs on this cactus, and little drawbridges and roadways, just go completely absurd,
Yeah.
and I can never seem to finish one of those ideas because another one comes to me that I have to I absolutely have to start drawing out, at least so I remember it.
Mm.
Then I can return to these other ones. And I often finish the sketch ideas when I'm bored and can't necessarily, or not really thinking of anything new because I don't feel inspired at that moment.
Mm.
But hey, I can work on this other one. Then while I'm working on tightening up some of these other sketches, more ideas start coming to me, and I got to put, even puns like, you know, I have these two bombshells that I set outside my studio on public days, so people can be like, oh, look, bombs. Oh, wait, this guy's got space art. This guy's
Yeah.
got surreal. Whoa, cool. And then I thought bombshells. I need to do, it just came to me. I had to do a sketch of bombshells underwater or bombs underwater with coral growing on them.
Mm.
And I want to call it She Sells Bombshells by the Seashore. Just
Yeah.
goofy ideas. That's like this realization came to me like a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago. And I've been realizing it more and more. But basically, there does not have to be super deep meaning in anything I do. As I was trying to apply all this, deep message and
Mm.
this, I want my art to reach people. I want it to make a difference. I want, then I realized, wait a second, not everything I do has to be that pretentious.
Mm.
You know, not everything I do has to preach to somebody. You
Mm.
know, if if nothing else, it can make them laugh, and it could maybe just the subject matter, as hilarious as it is and as colorful as it can do the work that me trying to explain something deep can do.
Right.
Maybe even better,
Mm.
so you know screw having to put so much meaning in my work, and instead of this particular rocket being overgrown and reclaimed and communicating something deep, maybe it's just a space probe melting just because it looks cool,
Yeah.
or falling in the water with little power stars from Mario falling around it. And maybe it's a camel smoking a cigarette, and he doesn't hold water,
Mm.
because he's a bathtub that's leaking,
Yeah.
or whatever. Maybe it's a
Hmm.
fish in a flying saucer, and the fish is smoking a pipe that's blowing bubbles, you know, because my goldfish died the other day,
Mm.
and it was one that me and two of my artist friends from the art center won at a fair by throwing ping pong balls in the cups.
Hmm.
So we each won a fish and had them all together, and then I named mine Winston, and he's the one that died.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry to hear about Winston.
You know, pour one out for him, or
That's it. That's it.
or I don't know. And he had a proper burial.
That's good.
Flushed down the toilet, and my friend sang to him as he was
Beautiful.
going down the toilet. I don't know what she sang, but you um, 21 gun salute.
That's it.
Water pistol salute.
There we go. There we go.
But yeah, basically just got to a point where literally everything's starting to inspire me.
Yeah.
And whether it's toys that I see somewhere, or the mountains I see as I'm passing through Colorado or Utah or wherever a couple weeks ago, or maybe it's, you know, maybe it's just an animal doing a goofy thing, or um, maybe it's somebody else's work.
Mm.
But I find myself feeling inspired a lot of the time, even if I don't know exactly what it's inspiring me to create. It's just adding fuel to that.
Yeah.
So I
Yeah.
probably went very long-winded on that answer. Sorry.
No, you're preaching to the choir here as far as that's concerned. Like a lot of the stuff, a lot of the mindset we talk about here is not making things perfect, right? Like perfection was like my you talked
Oh,
about that thing, like being a perfectionist prevented me from doing so many things. And then when I finally like let that drop and I just gave myself permission to just do it and keep putting it out there, all
yeah.
those things I was hoping I would do by being a perfectionist ended up happening. And then it just felt like I could have fun with it. And I wasn't like beating myself up trying to make it work. So like I relate to that a lot.
Yeah. Perfection is a killer of inspiration. And
Hmm.
while I aim to make things look as awesome as possible, is still, there's a difference between with a, I guess the word would be excellence versus perfectionism. Perfectionism is driven by fear that if I, oftentimes perfectionism kept me from going for things I was curious about. For instance,
Mm.
I really would love to get into 3D design art, and I'd love to get into graphic design a bit more than I've been, and I'd love to I'd love to record an album,
Mm.
and because I'm a musician, was primarily, now it's just playing in a 90s cover band. But
You're playing though. That's great.
yeah, and it's gotten me, fascinated with guitar again, to where I'm half the time I can't quit thinking about guitars I'd like to put together, and
Yeah.
it's a matter of time. But perfection kept perfectionism kept me from getting into 3D design, because, well, it's going to take me way too long to get good at it,
Mm.
or kept me from um, going for graphic design for a job, because what if I'm not as good at it as the other people,
Mm-hmm.
because naturally my brain doesn't think on a graphic design level. It thinks on a world building kind of level,
Mm.
very detailed. And but yeah, about perfectionism versus excellence. Excellence is like, ooh, this would look really cool if I did this, and it would look really cool if I added this detail, and if I added that detail. Well, what if I added this kind of lighting right here, or this, you know, you know, for excellence allows for experimentation.
Mm.
Perfection is afraid of experimentation because, well, what if I ruin it?
Yeah.
And, but even then, I tend to always come back to the paintings that I ruin, or um, frustrate myself on. I
Mm.
eventually come back to them and finish them and make them something I'm proud of. But, perfectionism has caused me to feel like I had to wait forever to be able to put out a certain print, because, you know, I wanted to do a reshoot of it, or
Right.
I wanted to,
It's never ready.
yeah, I feel, if I don't want to say story of my life, but
It was the story of my life, so I could say that.
I feel a lot of times, I feel like the story of my life is some kind of struggle between never ready versus, you know, can't keep up with my own creative mind.
Yeah.
Um, so many things I want to do that I feel too overwhelmed to try anything new,
Mm.
and it's like it takes me forever to try new things, because, well, it's going to take time and experimentation, and what I'm already good at, I could produce something faster that way. Um, but then I'm not nearly as satisfied. I'm
Mm.
always a lot more satisfied if I just say, you know, to hell with the limitations. Let's at least try this, and it could look cool. It might be a flop, but it might lead to other ideas
Right.
that, yeah, and it leads to other ideas that I become fascinated with. Then it's a win. I
Mm.
mean, I realized that the way I know I've done something good is not necessarily based on the response it gets from people, because sometimes I paint things that other people don't really respond to all that much, but it excites me a lot.
Mm.
Like, then again, maybe I'm lying there, because it always seems that a lot of times it seems that the ideas that I get most excited about and really just go after get the best response a lot of the time. Then
Yeah.
there are times when I feel, hey, this would be really awesome. What if I framed it this way? What if I did this to the thing? Like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then nobody notices.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I guess what I'm getting at is the mark of success in my own work. I know I've done a good job I know it sounds egotistical to say, and people sometimes will interpret it that way. I mean, I've been told I'm full of myself more times than I can count, but it's like, No, you don't realize I'm actually full of a lot of insecurity.
Mm,
But what I am is extremely excited about the ideas I want to create. It's not that these ideas are better than anybody else's.
right.
They are just fascinating to me. And I want people to be fascinated by them too, so that I can make a living.
Right.
That's not being
Right.
full of yourself.
No.
That's called being in love with what you do and what you're trying to express.
Yeah.
And it's purpose, and tell you how many times people think that people who are following after something that's burning inside them.
Mm,
Um, now I'm not talking like Taco Bell burning inside you. I'm talking,
right.
yeah, there's that there's that absurd humor that I like to throw into my work sometimes. But a lot of people don't realize that, you know, when following after what you feel is purpose, something burns within you that you can't ignore and you can't, just shove aside, at times you go after the thing you're really passionate about, the thing that you feel gives you purpose, and you'll always get accused of either being lazy, irresponsible, egotistical, full of yourself. It's like, you know, no, I'm just socially awkward, and I have this thing that I feel gives me something to be proud of,
Yeah.
and oh, my neck just popped. Can you edit that one out? um, but and it's a lot of times people who haven't quite found that drive yet. Um, they might be into thing. They might be, for instance, I've uh, I've had conversations with artists who they seem to think I don't know, they seem to dislike me, but look at their art and they still haven't quite figured out what they want to paint or what they
Mm,
want to do. They don't. When you find people who don't really have a whole lot of direction for what they're doing, even if they got the skill, they haven't
mm-hmm.
quite found that spark yet.
Mm-hmm.
They will, you know, they'll think badly, poorly of people who are who have found that,
Oh
who
yeah, absolutely. Have you ever read the book The War of Art by Steven Pressfield?
no.
So in that book, he talks about this idea of resistance, and if you're following that thing that you're talking about, whatever fire that burns inside of you, that's not Taco Bell.
Right.
Um, like when you do that, it is almost like a law of nature that people around you, not all people, but some people, are going to like react to that. And it could be people close to you, it could be people around you, like people working, and it's again, this is not a scientific thing, but I've seen it myself, and I think a lot of what held me back earlier with some of those passions was seeing that resistance and not wanting to, wanting people to like me and all those kind of things that humans have. Um, that kind of kept me down for a while. And then of course feeling stupid in a place like my college where that's just a dumb thing to think in the first place because all those people are smart, right? But that resistance of like I'm here, I'm doing what I love, I'm passionate, like that thing is what brings people to you, right? Like that's I people that reach out about this podcast, like I can't tell you how many people have said, "Hey, I don't know half the stuff that you're talking about, but because you're passionate about it and you're excited about it, I want to listen." And like
Mhm.
that's the greatest compliment I could get because I mean I truly believe that you don't need to be super technically um, high technical aptitude to understand space.
Yeah.
You don't have to be a rocket scientist to love space,
Right.
and I'll keep pushing that forward and trying to, I think on my end, and I feel like it's what you're saying too, is like our job is to keep keep putting stuff out, keep doing the things that we're passionate about. Because as soon as we stop doing the things we're passionate about, that's that's the sellout point. That's the point where you're like, is this what I want to do anymore? Is this, and I think as long as you're still going after that thing and following that flame, I don't think I think that's the right way to do it.
Yeah. And so listen to that voice of fascination and not that voice of anxiety,
Mm,
or it's to go through with a thing anyway, despite, you know, it's when you're following after, you know, that that drive, that flame, when you're riding that wave, you are gonna have to you are gonna have to try things that you know that you don't know how to do.
mm,
And you are gonna have to, it's gonna lead you down paths that you don't already know the way. And you just gotta learn as you go. And
mm,
it's been very, you know, very hard for me to put into practice.
mm.
Easier to put into practice with artwork itself, but not when it comes to business practice. Like,
Yes.
such as I suck at making reels. Um, I don't know why it seems like a lot of, you know, artists who are really, really into what they do, um, to the point of it being like an obsession or a mad scientist in a laboratory. That's what I feel like sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
It Why do we suck at technology? Why do we suck at reels? And, you know, you should make a podcast. You should make a, time lapse videos of your artwork. You should do NFTs. You
Mm.
know,
That's yeah. That's
I still haven't done NFTs, partly because I don't know what I'm doing. A
yeah.
big part because I don't know what I'm doing. For one, being told, oh, you have to have like a ton of different variety of each individual one. So, and you have to have someone to program it for you.
Right.
I know nothing about programming,
Yeah.
and I don't quite know how to find the people to help with that. But
Yeah.
the other part is that fear of, well, what if my image gets stolen from me?
Mm.
Because
Yeah.
everybody says, oh yeah, NFTs they're the future of art, man. They're completely safe. Right. Just like vaping's completely safe too, because
Yeah.
we haven't had any reported issues of people getting any lung issues from it. That's what, and now suddenly we are, like,
Yep.
that's not a commentary on vaping whatsoever. It's just a
No, but I hear what you're
comparison.
saying. Yeah.
NFTs, they're safe and secure because no one's had an issue with them until they started having issues with them. And then,
Yeah.
oh, well, I guess NFTs aren't 100% safe. Who'd have thunk it, But
Yeah.
I don't know. It's like I'd still like to try it if I could find the right people to help.
Mm-hmm.
I really want to do kids books too,
Mm.
and if I can find the right people to help with that, because I gotta be honest with you, I don't really have good business sense.
Mm.
Uh,
Oh, I'm learning myself, man. Like honestly, like 8 years in, and I'm finally at the point where that those things are starting to piece together. But like even you know, I do a podcast about all things space. The thing that got me to that point was music and a degree in that.
hmm,
Nowhere in that was business.
a
So
degree in
like,
music,
yeah,
nice.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
what I was. That's what I was going for before graphic design. So,
Mm,
um, 2 year program. Thankfully, it was only 2 years, but it was the whole recording industry thing, and they didn't teach us any of the business side of it. All they taught us was
mm,
how to run a soundboard and how to record, but they didn't teach us like
right,
how to get a job in that field,
right.
how to. I never went for that because I was afraid because I didn't
Mm,
do as well as all the other people. in my
Yeah.
recording classes.
Mm.
I play circles around them on guitar, but I didn't have I was very intimidated because I didn't have the that innate understanding of using technology.
Yeah.
You know, so
Well, it's funny. Like for me, going back to like the doing, and just going out there and trying it when the time is right. Like for me, it was I didn't learn business until I started. I had gotten a 3D printer while I was towards the end of my school time and tinkered around with that, and then realized I could start selling stuff, and then had to figure out, okay, like how much does this actually cost me to run this thing? Like what? So it wasn't until I like had something to actually price out or make a business around that I actually learned business,
yeah,
if you even call it that, right? I guess I should call it. It is a small business. We are like this podcast only exists because that business exists. So,
yeah,
um, yeah, I mean, I think a lot of it is you mentioned it, like having when you got the right people when the time's right, like and just being ready to jump on it when that's there. And I think a lot of the stuff that I learned was like, well, what can I do today? Like I have all these ideas. Don't forget them. Write them down. Keep them. But like, what can I do today? Like,
yeah,
because that was that perfectionist thing. Like, oh, I can't do anything until I can do that big thing. Well,
yeah,
that big thing's never gonna happen if you don't. If you
yeah,
I used to think of it like riding a wave. Like if you don't learn how to ride a wave, then when the big wave comes, you're not ready for it. So
right,
keep riding those waves when they come. Take the opportunity, and you'll get better at hanging on.
yeah, yeah. That's yeah, because that fear of failure will lead to procrastination too,
Mm,
which can lead to getting behind in everything too, because you
yes.
just get overwhelmed. And honestly, I'm in a place like that where I feel overwhelmed by everything, and I'm trying to get caught up on some things,
Mm-hmm.
and but I have to continue the art because I've got orders I've got to finish for people, and
Mm-hmm.
I've got you know all the tax stuff that's really complicated, and you know, so
Well, this is the good thing about the internet. Like, we are now acquaintances. We're now internet friends. So I'm glad that we met, and I can introduce you to some people, and you can introduce me to some people, and
yeah,
we can learn from each other. We don't have to be. I think that's another thing about business is like some of the most successful people in the world weren't experts in every aspect of it. Like
yeah,
they just found the right person or learned the right thing from the right person, and then they were able to just leverage their strengths. That's a very very common thing.
yeah.
It just takes those people who want to get out there and do it. So
Hmm.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, it seems like one of the questions you had written down was about the business side of things,
yeah.
and what were the things I've had to learn along the way, or like I mean, it took literally just asking all the dumbest questions to the
Mm,
people who've already been doing it, and then finding out, a year or two later, oh wait, I'm actually doing better at this than they are.
mm,
Like for instance, I thought anybody who had a studio at Lowell Mill, the arts and entertainment place that I have a studio at. But anybody who had a place there who sold originals, they must have been experts at pricing their work.
mm,
Wow, how do you price your work? And I find out, oh, it's actually not too hard. And turns out I price my work fairly for I've gotten a sense of how to price my work fairly for the amount of work I put into it and for the amount of amazement people are gonna get when they see it,
mm,
hopefully. Or also it's going to take this much for me to feel comfortable letting go of it. Okay, that's a fair way to price it, honestly.
yeah.
You know, and if you overprice your stuff, well, it's just not going to sell.
Mm,
And it's still a fair price. This is what it's going to cost. Like for instance, say I want to charge $50 for a postcard, you know. Yeah, that's a bit extreme. But if it's a special postcard to me and someone wants to pay that $50 for that postcard, Um, well, I priced it fairly because they decided it was worth it to them to pay that.
Mm,
Sure. Okay. Um, Same with a painting. Like I've got one that I jokingly uh, price at 10K. Um, but it's my favorite one,
yeah.
and it's the one I'm most proud of. And if someone wants to pay me 5K for it, I'd probably be like, yeah, sure. If
Yeah.
someone wants to pay me 10K for it,
Great.
yeah. But if someone wants to say it's overpriced, I'll be like, no, it's not overpriced. Maybe other people wouldn't price it at that much, but
Mm,
to me, that's what I'm gonna say. You've got to pay me in order for me to hand it over to you. And
yeah.
like, because you got to take into consideration there are other things besides just how many hours went into it and the cost of materials. Because that's the kind of thing that goes into just production of a product.
Right.
My individual paintings are not, to me, they're not really product. They
Mm,
are creations. Big difference between a creation and a product. I mean, it's like, um, I mean, you price a creation really expensive. If someone doesn't want to pay that, then it's fair. They don't have to pay it and they don't have to own it. That's
yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
But, if they decide they want to, great. I've had people complain about my prices, and then, you know, someone a few months later or following year come by and fall in love with it and decide they want to pay it.
Yeah.
Awesome. It's a win-win right there. I mean, even if I had to hold on to it longer, I still sold it, and
Yeah.
that's why
And
I
to the
also,
right person too, right? That's
right.
the other
I
thing is
want my
like,
stuff going to the people who really, really love my work. I mean, I
yeah.
had one guy find me through a gallery because there was a framed print of a certain painting of mine
Mm,
of an Atlas V sticking out of the waves with and it was colored like sorry, computer keeps sliding out of my
oh, it's
lap.
okay.
The coloration was like an infrared photo,
Mm,
and he saw this painting or this print of mine. It was the blue version, whereas the original was the red version.
mm,
Um, and he's like, "Do you have any of those prints left?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I do, but I mean, I think he was asking about the original." I said, "Yeah, the original is not blue though; it's red." So I showed him, and he liked that even better.
mm.
And he didn't want to pay the original price I was asking, but he did agree to a price I was happy for, and he drove all the way down from Pennsylvania to pick it up from me, and he is so proud to own that thing, and I'm so happy that he's the one who has it because of how happy it makes him.
Yeah.
And even though I've had people, plenty of people say, "Oh, it's cool," but I don't want to buy it. They buy the prints, but they don't want to buy the original. It's fine. Like it's eventually gonna go to the right people.
Yeah.
And
I mean, there's so much power too in that, like that you think about all the things that we buy and how non-negotiable everything is on the consumer side of things. Like for you to be able to have the power to be like, hey, look, yeah, this was the price, but it seems like you really do love this, so all right, let's figure something out. And then that experience you have to give that person that creation. I mean, that's you know, that to me is, I think, why you learn the business side of things is that you can find that value, that mid ground, not to like penny pinch people or to like try and get a bunch of money, but to just get the right value for your work.
right,
It's beautiful, man.
yeah. I mean, to me, it's not about trying to get rich or anything. It's not even about trying to get famous. It's about wanting to be able to sustain myself through what I love doing.
Mm,
And you know, I'd rather go to the right people. And I don't have to make $1 million on a painting, but I at least want to be able to pay my bills and be able to it's like it feels like it's a game of buying myself time to make more creations.
yeah,
That makes
totally.
sense. Like,
Absolutely. That's all I'm doing here.
yeah, and so there's a lot. Like, I'll be honest with you, one of the biggest obstacle in making a business, or trying to be trying to be a full-time artist in a town where, or in a world where everybody says you can't make a living as an artist, and in a town that doesn't necessarily feel like it values the arts because it values all the technical things. It values missiles and rockets more than, and sports ball more than it values, creative culture.
Mm,
And I mean, it took forever for us to get a venue, a concert venue that touring bands would actually show up to.
mm,
Like, we just started getting good concerts within the past year or two. I mean, before that, it was, either washed up bands who were still trying to hang on, or it was, you know, cringy bands that, you know, attract a certain type of crowd, but
mm.
not like, I mean, for instance, um, I mean, we used to get really good concerts back in the day. I mean, when I was a kid, we had Van Halen show up to Huntsville, but
Man.
never again.
Yeah.
Like, Rush showed up to Huntsville in the '70s and said never again.
Wow.
Um, but finally got a really good. They finally started making some changes and putting in some infrastructure for this kind of thing. And you know, I broke my concert dry spell. Due to the pandemic, I broke it by going and seeing, you know, Mammoth. Wolfgang Van Halen's, or Eddie Van Halen's son.
Yeah.
And went and saw Primus and Flogging Molly. All these
Oh,
bands are starting to come here now,
oh,
but we
dude, that's
still
awesome.
don't quite have. So your picture just disappeared, but oh,
Yeah,
there
I
it
don't
is.
know what's going on
Better,
with my camera.
cool.
Sorry.
Yeah, we're finally back to a place where we got good bands coming through. I mean, we had Dave Matthews Band show up.
That's
I'm
awesome.
not into that, but
Yeah, but still, yeah.
it's awesome that happened. Last night was Vince Gill, and
Mm,
we got all these bands starting to come through now, but still there's something missing from Huntsville, and that's creative culture, not just, hey, we have entertainment now.
right.
Now we have entertainment,
Mm,
but creative culture is really slowly trying to grow. And it's a town of engineers, so it almost feels like it's a lost cause to force a creative culture in a town that doesn't necessarily see value in it.
mm,
um, as much as I really love the idea of making places look, making the town look like an amazing place to be, and us having real actual artistic places to go besides just one art center.
mm,
you know and you go to Denver and there's murals everywhere. There's that Meow Wolf place I told you about,
yeah.
and there's you know the aesthetics everywhere are just mind-blowing.
Mm,
And you know but yeah, I love Huntsville. It's just we're not there yet as
yeah.
far as the creativity. But um
But you're there. You're
yeah,
playing your part.
there's a small pocket of artists, yes,
Yeah.
but you know I can't say how often I feel this desire to go to another town
Mm,
where I feel, or where I'll be more among my people,
yeah.
and but I was going to say, though, the biggest obstacle to being creative in a town like this, or in a world, like in a society like we're in, um, is not, the logistical steps. It's not the logistics of it. It's burnout.
Mm,
And To be honest, I feel very burned out lately. Um, and I've got so many. It's almost like not only that, artists often deal with depression. Creative people deal with depression, and that depression and burnout go hand in hand. And it's it almost causes you to see reality through a lens of impending doom.
Mm,
And I'm trying to fight to get out of that. I've gotten through it before. I'll get through it again. It's just a matter of recognizing what practical steps to take when you're going through that. When sometimes you can't find the motivation to get out of bed. I
yeah,
mean, you have to anyway, but so that's one of the biggest things I'm learning is how to push through burnout. You
yeah,
ask, what are some of the things I've had to learn as a artist, as a business owner, as a self-employed artist. It's not giving up hope. It's staying positive and being creative in my solutions, attempting to be creative in my solutions when I don't have somebody there to tell me what to do. I don't have
mm,
somebody there to guide me through any of it.
yeah,
And uh, I can ask questions, but I'm doing a very different thing than a lot of the people who I can ask those questions to. So it's like I can learn principles from them, but I got to be the one to figure out the way to apply it to what I'm specifically doing.
yeah.
Uh,
Thank you for that. I appreciate the honesty of that because you're definitely not the only you're not alone in that struggle.
yeah,
And I think a lot of people are gonna relate to you in that. I think a lot of people are going through the same thing right now, especially if they're tackling a creative endeavor. It's a surprisingly lonely uh, journey, or almost like a traveling samurai almost. Where it's
yeah.
like, look, you have your skill, you're a master in your craft, but you know, it's on to the next town kind of thing. And
How can I be of use to society?
mm,
How can I figure out how to get integrated into a place where I want to be doing
mm,
what I love doing and cause them to see the value in what I'm doing
mm,
so that I can exist here.
mm.
You know, it's a weird game.
It's a weird game, and like uh, we all have the simultaneous like access to everyone on the planet, and then also simultaneously feeling like we're completely alone. It's a very,
Yeah,
very strange time to be a human for sure.
yeah, and that I really feel like a lot of those. I, this is kind of a side note, but as you said, feeling alone and the isolation, the word isolation was coming to mind, and to me, it really like some of my imagery is brought back up in my mind as I'm
Mm,
seeing this. Like I'm seeing like this painting I did of a melting space probe, you know,
mm,
like it's isolated and it can't get off the ground. It's stuck there, and it's like I don't I don't know the meaning of that one. I did it just because it looked cool, but isolation definitely has a part to play in it. I feel, you know, sometimes the meaning will come to you
mm.
about your work after you've done it, just
Yeah,
because sometimes I'll do work just for the hell of it, and then the meaning will come later, and it'll turn out to have a really deep meaning to me.
yeah,
Well, a title will come to me to apply to that painting, and then suddenly it takes on this context that just brings me to tears.
yeah,
And it's like I know that particular one just works, and because it communicates a certain thing all of a sudden and puts it in a different light, kind of the weird juxtaposition of sad lyrics on happy sounding music, or um, hilarious lyrics over really dark music.
Yeah.
Um, there's one artist I listen to, Devon Townsend.
Mm,
He's
I
a
haven't heard of
metal
him.
artist, but he's got this one album. It's musically, it's dreamy and it's extremely dark, sometimes chaotic,
Mm,
and very melodic and just intense is the only way to describe it. One extreme to the other, but the lyrics are all about an alien who comes to Earth to steal all the Earth's coffee because it has the power to bend space and time. Um, and the whole entire narration and the it's just ridiculous and
oh, I gotta check
hilarious.
this out.
Yeah,
That's
I'll send
great.
you the link for the
Yeah, thank you.
called Ziltoid the Omniscient. But yeah, like yeah, just not giving up is the trick. It's the
Mm.
you know what I mean? Like
And almost tricking yourself to get through that. Like I find myself doing that a lot. Where, like, if I hit a wall, um, I learned this from listening to a lot of stand up comics. Where like they'll go listen to somebody else's show, or they'll sit in and be an audience member just to just see how someone else does it to get influenced, or go to a movie or something. Like, you, other creativity can help you find your creativity again, or fuel you back up, fill that tank up, as I like to think of it.
yeah,
um, because yeah, man, burnout's a real thing and everyone's susceptible to it, and sometimes it's out of our control. Like, sometimes just stuff piles up and we're it's a whole bunch of change real fast, and it just, your body's got to adjust to it.
yeah.
I find myself sometimes hiding away just to fill that tank back up, because I know I can just feel it coming. um,
Mhm.
I've gotten to tune that in a little bit.
Yeah.
So
And it's like I think the most important thing that as a creative, but the most important thing you can do to come up with your best material, whether it's a podcast or whether it's music or whether it's art, is stay inspired, stay fascinated. And that's about the only time you're going to put out your most authentic work. And people can tell when you're putting out your most authentic work versus when you're putting out stuff just because you think it's going to sell.
yeah.
And oftentimes there've been times where I've been afraid to explore or just hesitant to explore any certain area because I was unsure if I was going to be able to come up with anything authentic,
Mm.
because I don't want to, like, I just know I'm not going to be able to come up with anything authentic if I'm not interested, if
Yeah.
I'm not fascinated. And drawing a blank here.
No, I face this a lot, and I have friends that want the best for me, and I can tell you over the years how many people have been like, "Oh, you should be doing videos about this," or "You should do your videos, change your video titles so that they're more catchy." And like, I I probably have lost a lot of momentum from the algorithm, but I don't care. Like, I'm not doing this to hack the algorithm. I'm not doing this
No,
to get a million views. I'm doing this because I love it. And then in the process, learn some of the things so that I can do it in a way that I want to.
I'd love to hack the algorithm, but I
It would be
don't know.
great.
I'm not gonna I'm not gonna change what I do to do something gimmicky
Yes.
in order to just grab attention.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
wouldn't say I'm, the type of person who's all like, pay attention to me, me, me. I can be sometimes. Or at least I want people to notice my work.
Right.
Um, there's always that fight for relevance and
Mm-hmm.
to try and, um, you know, stay interesting. But like, if you're not doing something that you are extremely interested in, it's not going to jump out at other people
Yeah.
unless you're literally trying to go step by step to try and make a trending video by following the trends. I don't know who decides those trends, or I don't know. I looked it up and it's like people are getting less likes on their image posts now because people now want to see videos. I was like, who decided that all of a sudden? And why did my engagement all of a sudden one day just go down on my image posts?
Yeah.
And it's like, um, you know, yeah, this thing's really is totally not rigged, and
Yeah.
you know, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna go pour paint on a canvas and then spin it and make a mess and then bow
Right.
for the camera just to get a million views on a video where people are going to tell me that it's not real art,
Right.
because
Right.
that's part of the appeal is that it's controversial.
Mm.
And I don't want to make controversial art. I want to make art that sparks something beautiful in people.
Mm.
And I want to make art that I'm actually really into and not, you know, play the system.
Yeah.
I don't know how to play the system. I've never been good at that kind of thing.
As someone who's toiled with it for a long time, I've learned from like the one person that helped make sense of some of it was Gary Vaynerchuk. I don't know if you're familiar
Yeah,
with
I've
him.
got one of his books. I got 2 pages into it.
Nice. Yeah.
And I got bored.
Yeah. He's good. He's got a lot of different ways you can take in his stuff.
Which
But
book?
which book?
Mm-hmm.
So let's see. Crush It, I think, was the first one that I listen to books. I can't read. This doesn't stick.
That's
Um,
part of the problem with me too. And
yeah, and he reads his books, so you kind of get his like flair on it too. 12 and a half is his new book, which if you're into it, I have a copy I can send you. But if reading's not your thing, I think it's available on audio too. Um, but he I've just listened to enough of his stuff that the message finally stuck, and I took some of his advice of just like poking around. Like the he helped me crack that perfectionist thing of just do like put out content, stop overthinking content. Like it's just you're already doing it. Just find a way to put it out there consistently so that people can see it.
mm,
One thing that I still struggle with, but I've gotten a lot better, is like when I put something out, I feel like everyone has seen it, and so then I get bored with it, and I'm like, well, I've seen it because I edit all my stuff, so I've by the time it gets released, I've probably heard or listened to it 6 times. So by that, I just drive myself crazy. So part of the thing with the doing was it kind of helped me just not worry about getting bored. Where it's like I always learn the lesson again, where it's like there's always someone out there that hasn't seen the stuff or who a lot of what I'm trying to do is spread space and science content that people learn about what's going on.
mm-hmm.
Um, there's so many people who've never, it just has never come across. Like all the James Webb Space Telescope stuff, I had to stop going online because it was making me get tired of it. And I don't want to do that. So
Mm-hmm.
I had to go away from online and start focusing on like, okay, what did I find interesting? And I'm working right now on putting together that James Webb Space Telescope episode where I'm just gonna sit down. I'm gonna go through each image. I'm probably gonna put it up on a screen and zoom in and just talk about what excites me about it. I mean, I'm at that point. I've learned a few things. I'll share those, and that's it. Like and I'll just keep doing that. And that is has been, I think, the most freeing thing is like learning that once you get to the point where I feel like I'm overthinking it, I'm like, all right, just do it. I'm not gonna, I feel that overthinking coming. So
Yeah.
let's let's trick myself into not overthinking.
Yeah. For me, it's just deciding, you know what? I don't know how exactly to make a super amazing trending reel, but I'll learn by just attempting. I'll
Yeah,
learn a bit more each time. Eventually, I'll put out some reels that go viral.
yeah,
Eventually, yeah.
yeah.
Like it doesn't have to happen immediately.
No,
it's
and
just
that's the beautiful
hard
thing,
not to
man.
give up in the meantime, you know.
I know, no, believe me.
It's like
I hear you.
I just want someone to make the videos for me
Mm,
and let me just focus on painting.
yeah,
Like just
that's me
I
with editing. I do wish I could pass off the editing to somebody else, and one
yeah.
day I'm sure it will happen.
Hmm.
Um, but I do hear you.
Yeah. Is,
Well,
there's some other things you wanted to ask or
I mean, I've taken up a lot of your time, so I appreciate every minute. I think what I'd like to do is just tell the folks about. Let's do a little business here. Tell the folks about like where they can find you, where your social media stuff is, where they can find some of your artwork, and the best way to get in touch.
all right. Well, my website is Ethereal Geometry Arts. That is ethereal as in Ethereal. I have to spell that for everybody just about. So I figured I'd go ahead.
Absolutely.
Etherealgeometryarts.com. Um, my Instagram is where I post most consistently at Ethereal Geometry. I also have a couple of other ones that are a bit more hilarious. Let's see. It's to see some of my really weird creations. My yeah, I have one that's Chris Wade's weirder art, and it's ADHD underscore air underscore and underscore space. A lot of underscores,
I like that.
unfortunately,
I
but
like that though.
yeah, it's because it's from my series called the ADHD Air and Space Zoo,
Mm.
and just all my wacky creatures, including my pet portraits. Because I do some hilarious pet portraits,
I
and
have enjoyed them.
yeah, and I like to do just really funny creatures that make no sense, including like one of them's a set of dentures with really jacked up teeth and duck feet and little eyeball stalks. Um, I named him Ace Dentura,
Oh,
because why not? Um, you know, one of them's a armadillo vacuum cleaner with a rocket on his back, and he's smoking a pipe, and he's got a cowboy hat on. Just really hilarious stuff. So anyway, that's how to find me is just ethereal geometry on Instagram, ethereal geometry arts on online, or etherealgeometryarts.com, and ethereal geometry arts on Facebook. Yeah. Uh, but yeah, is there
yeah.
anything else you'd like to know? Because I'm happy to give more explanation on anything, really. I mean, up to you.
Yeah, well, I think we should do a whole other episode. Honestly, I think
Yeah.
we've tapped into a whole bunch here. Let's cap it off and go for another in the future here. Now, in real life, if someone's in Huntsville and they wanted to visit your studio, is that something people could do?
Yeah, just I prefer them send me a message to let me know they're coming by, because a lot of times I'm out running errands, and
Mm,
I've had plenty of times people be like, "Hey, I stopped at your studio, but you weren't there." Well, did you message me to let me know? Because there's
right.
only one of me, and I gotta do all the stuff. So
Absolutely, yeah.
um,
Well, you heard it, folks. If you're heading to Huntsville for anything space related, or if you're in the area working, reach out to Chris and see if you can find him over at the studio.
yeah, it's at Low Mill Arts and Entertainment. That's low as in LOWEMILL. Yeah, Lowell Mill Arts and Entertainment. It's biggest art center in the Southeast, biggest privately owned art center in the country.
Hmm.
And it's just 5 minutes from the Space Center, with
Okay.
traffic. So you go to Space and Rocket Center and go to Lowell Mill. It's open Wednesday through Saturday, 11 to 7. But I'm in studio 2048, and
Awesome.
place is decked out with you know kind of ethereal, post-apocalyptic, whimsical art, and and military trunks and bombshells and I've even got an oscilloscope in there. So
Nice.
just all the little cool, wacky, weird stuff that I like. Yeah. So, um, you get to see some stuff in the works. You get to see stuff already framed and finished, and um, sometimes you might catch me airbrushing in there. More likely, you're gonna see me drinking coffee or drinking a beer while I'm working in there. So,
Amen, man.
yeah. So,
Awesome. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. I
well,
really
thank you
enjoy
for
it.
having me. I
And
appreciate it.
folks, definitely check out Chris at all the places. We'll have it here up on the episode so you guys can follow along. But Chris, thanks again. Any last minute last words for the folks out there, or anyone trying to follow that thing burning inside?
Um, no, not really. I
You
can't
covered it
think
pretty
of
well. So
I can't think of anything super profound or anything super witty and funny. So, um, just basically do what fascinates you and makes you feel alive. You know, because if you're not doing that, then you're gonna burn out quick.
yeah.
Um, and you know that there's that soundbite on Instagram of that robotic woman voice saying, "I didn't want to work a 9 to 5, so I started my own business. Now I work 24/7." But the thing is, if you really love what you're doing, you don't mind all the work that goes into it because it's so satisfying. Um, or at least it gets satisfying at a point,
Hmm.
at some point it gets there. So basically just, like what I used to tell kids at space camp is follow your fascination. Any idea that you develop that becomes fascinating to you, you should go after it. Don't don't find all the reasons why it's not going to work, because then
Mm.
it for sure won't work,
Mm.
because you're not going to try it.
Yeah, and you'll
So,
always find an idea of why you shouldn't.
right. So, you always have all the well-meaning people. I love to tell this to kids too, probably against their parents' um, judgment.
Hmm.
All the well-meaning people are going to tell you not to do it.
Mm.
They're all the people who care about you are going to tell you to not go for your dreams because it's not safe. It's not predictably success. There's no way to, there's not a clear outcome, and parents obviously want for their kids to do well, get a good job. Don't blame them. Yeah.
Yeah.
But if there's an idea, if there's something in them burning that's going to help them, feel like they're really affecting the world,
Mm.
making a difference in people's lives, making a difference on the world, no matter how ridiculous that idea is. Somebody's gonna, somebody's gonna, at the right time, the right people are gonna come in and help.
Mm.
And things have a tendency to, they have a way of falling into place at the right time. And especially when you believe that it can happen.
Yeah.
So I've had craziest things happen, most unpredictably, and I don't know how to make them happen again. And but they just fall into place and happen.
Yeah. You keep
So
doing it. You keep putting yourself out there. Yeah.
exactly, yeah,
That's it, man.
and don't give up.
And don't
It's
give up.
it's just one guy owns a coffee shop down the hall from me. He constantly telling me consistency is key.
Mm.
He's getting on to me for not being in my studio early enough,
Mm.
or um, trying to keep me from giving up, or getting discouraged. So consistency is key, and drink a lot of coffee to help with it.
That's it. That's it.
Yeah. Anyway, I've taken up your time too, so
No, Chris, thank you so much. This is a great conversation. I'm looking forward to the next
appreciate
one.
it. I'd love to come back sometime whenever you'll have me.
Awesome.
Well, appreciate it.
Thanks, Chris. Spread love, spread science, everybody. Have a good one. We'll see you in the next episode.
Later.